As counterterrorism, it was perfect Orwellian doublespeak, a counter-terrorist program trading arms to the Iranians for hostages. Even as late as 1986, October 86, after Hassan Fous's plane was shot down in Nicaragua, Ollie North still delivered 500 more TOW missiles to Rafsanjani in Iran. President Reagan later tried to describe this as a couple of pickup truck loads. That's less of a doublespeak than of an outright lie. And where was George Bush? Well, after these sales were made public, in March '87, Reagan admitted that they were a mistake, and he asked George Bush to do a review of the policy, evaluate its effectiveness. Bush's report came out in July of '87. It called the policy sound, effective, and in accord with our democratic principles and national ideals of freedom. Congress, on the other hand, called these covert policies incompatible with democracy. Where else was Ollie? Well, in his spare time with Carl Spitz Channel and Richard Miller, he was doing sideshows, fleecing the right wing for Contra Arms Support funds, while it was proscribed by the Boland Amendment. In addition, journalist Bob Woodward describes North helping set up a disinformation campaign against Muammar Gaddafi by way of another national security defense directive. We'll talk about those in a minute. It was codenamed Veil. In his book of that name, Bob Woodward further described North as having said, "It's time to kill the cocksuckers," despite Reagan's earlier executive order banning assassination by U.S. agents, and of course, the congressional prohibition on assassination after the Church and Pike hearings in the 70s. Before the Iran-Contra affair broke in the summer of '86, North lied to Congress, denying that he had given military assistance to the Contras or that he had known of specific military operations. Fawn Hall, remember Fawn? This rally is about Fawn, said in the hearings that sometimes you have to lie for a higher cause. Now, lest we be reassured that with Poindexter, McFarland, and North dismissed, with Walsh's indictment of 5 key operators in the plan, that the program is over. Be aware of this. North's task force senior review group included members of the CIA, the FBI, the State Department, the Defense Department, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Some of these rotated jobs, but none was fired, and most are still actively working for the same causes today. And what was this FBI man in the group for? Well, it's now known that what was supposedly began as a North anti-terrorist investigation of CISPES, the committee in solidarity with the people of El Salvador, that despite present admissions by the FBI that there was no evidence of terrorist activities, the operation expanded to eventually include surveillance of some 200 different groups, church groups, legal advocacy, education groups, veterans groups, even an order of nuns as terrorists. And although we know of 10 break-ins at least in the Old Cambridge Baptist Church in Cambridge, where the local Central American offices have their offices, none of the FBI's admissions include operations in the Boston area. So I guess whoever it is, I guess you're out there somewhere. So I've been holding the most serious of the North's abuses to last. You've heard the reference to several national security defense directives. Reagan has signed at least 280 of these, probably much more by now. That's one about every 10 days since he's been in office. The public doesn't know even the names, the titles of these directives. About 1/4 are known by leaks. Even Congress, by and large, has not been briefed on them. As executive orders, they are not subject to Congress scrutiny unless they are discovered to be involving illegal activities. A partial leak of this one is chilling. It occurred on July 5th of '87, the next to the last day of Oliver North's testimony before Congress. The Miami Herald had partial details. When Congressman Jack Brooks, conservative Democrat of Texas, asked Ollie North about it, the committee chairman Inouye gavelled Brooks down on 2 occasions and declared the material should be reserved for a closed session. What was it? North drafted what was called National Security Defense Directive in 1982, which Attorney General William French Smith rejected in '84 as unconstitutional, thank heavens. As Brooke characterized it, a plan to suspend the Constitution. In case of a crisis, and that crisis could include civil unrest following U.S. military intervention abroad, say in Central America, the U.S. would come under martial law. The Federal Emergency Management Authority, FEMA, would control the country through military commanders of state and local city governments. That's one way of getting rid of governor like Dukakis, I guess. Several 100,000 Latino aliens were to be rounded up, something like the Japanese-American roundups during World War II. Also, a few tens of thousands of suspected dissidents, presumably the ones the FBI has been surveilling all along. Some of the details of this martial law plan had been revealed earlier by the chief attorney for the Christic Institute, the group that we're doing support here in Boston for. Daniel Sheehan is his name. The Christic Institute is a not-for-profit legal aid group in Washington, best known for its prosecution of the Kerr-McGee Company for the Karen Silkwood family. They also ran the case against the Nazis and the Ku Klux Klan members in Greensboro, North Carolina, for shooting down in broad daylight on television the demonstrators there. The North Carolina state and the federal officials failed to prosecute these successfully. The Christic Institute came in with a suit and won it. Sheehan himself traces the origins of our guns and drugs running not just to Central America, the group that Senator Kerry has been investigating. In fact, he traces them back to the 1960s when the same group ran drugs and guns, heroin, out of Cambodia and Laos. You may have seen much of this exposed a few months ago on public TV's Frontline documentary called Guns, Drugs, and the CIA. And who was commanding the Air Force operation that supported the CIA Air America work that was known as collectively Air Opium? Well, at that time, it was not yet General, it was Colonel Richard Secord, more recently General Secord running the Enterprise. And what young Annapolis graduate was attached to the operation? Oliver North. The Christic Institute has a lawsuit in the 11th District Appeal Court in Atlanta charging 29 men, mostly former federal employees, under racketeering and influence corrupt practices statute, the RICO. The federal court system has delayed the case until after the election, just as the Walsh trials have been delayed until after the election. In support of the Christic Institute case, Jackson Browne is doing a concert in Boston this Saturday night at the Wang Center, part of a 12-city tour to raise money for the prosecution in the Christic case. And Sunday, Daniel Sheehan, Chief Counsel of the Christic Institute, will speak at 2 p.m. at the Arlington Street Church, free, explaining the whole case and its frightening details. Please come and learn more about it. Help get Ollie's gang placed behind bars, sorry. Now, I'll wager that not one person in 100 in America knows that there were 2 different attempted coups by military-related right-wing groups in the 1930s. In both cases, despite hearings or trials, those guilty went totally unpunished. So please come to Danny Sheehan's talk on Sunday afternoon at 2 at the Arlington Street Church and help support this case so it won't happen again. I'm going to end with a quote from George Orwell in 1984. If the party could thrust its hand into the past and say of this or that event, it never happened, that surely was more terrifying than even torture and death. Reality control, they call it. Thank you.